So, since 2019, pretty much the only constant in the US foldable market has been Samsung with their Z Fold, up until about 2023, when Google first released the Pixel Fold. Well, now it's 2025, and those two are pretty much the only ones remaining. There's talk of Apple coming out with a foldable next year, but until then, we just got a big two, a dynamic duo. Question is, which one would you rather have? For me, well, you're about to find out. I feel like this has got like a heavyweight fight feel. Like it's just like when you compare any other phones in this space, it's like, well, you can take this phone and compare it to this one or this one to this one. But in the US market, it's just these two. And obviously, Samsung's made some changes from last year and they're getting a lot of great reviews. And Google already hit a home run last year. And so they've made some improvements. So now it's like the hype train is real and I don't know if everyone else is waiting to see what was going to happen, but I know I definitely was because I was just like, okay, like how's this going to shake out? Who's going to win this battle? Like it's nuts. Okay, I'm gonna jump off the hype train. But seriously, like every year, I'm always looking at all the news articles and checking out all the different rumors, just waiting to see, come summertime, what Samsung's going to put out and what Google's going to put out. This year was a little different. Samsung still came out in the summer. I think I got mine right at the end of July. But as for Google, mine didn't ship until October. So I had to wait a little bit for this heavyweight bout. So coming out the gate, just looking at both of these phones, I can tell you that I like the way both of them look. I do wish Google would have came out with a few more colors, although the Moonstone Gray does look sick. But for me, I think that the Samsung looks cooler with that blue and how thin it is. It just seems a little bit more futuristic for me. Then when it comes to holding each device, the Samsung noticeably feels lighter than the Pixel, but the Pixel feels more comfortable than the Samsung due to those rounded edges versus Samsung's sharp corners. Looking at the back of these phones, I can easily tell you that the Samsung's more aesthetically pleasing for me. And I think that's largely because the camera bump is kind of out of the way and it's smaller. But lay these phones on the table, and I can tell you 10 out of 10 times you'd much rather have the Pixel's camera bump because that Samsung is just rocking all over the table. It is not a fun phone to just lay there and try to do anything with. Versus the Pixel, you can lay it on the table and you can tap away. Samsung, yeah, right. It's not happening. Next, opening up both of these phones to see those big, beautiful displays has actually made me notice a couple of things about each one of them. For starters, I feel like the crease is about the same size on each one of these devices. And coming from somebody who uses a foldable as his main, as his daily driver, if you will, I usually don't pay attention to the crease. Like most of the time, if I'm on the internet or if I'm just like watching videos, I'm not paying attention to the crease. Like I never think about the crease unless I'm doing like a review or something and I actually have to say something about it. Also, I'm not really sure if Google put some sort of like anti-reflective coating or if it's just the material of the screen protector, but it seems like the Z Fold 7 reflects a little bit more light than what the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is doing. So I don't know if it's an optical illusion for me or if there's actually something with their screen protector that is causing this phone not to have so much of a glare. So going forward, if anybody else has both of these phones, I'd be very curious to see if you see the same thing that I do. Using these phones on a daily basis has brought me somewhat of a similar experience when it comes to the software, but also in another sense, very different. As many of you already know, using a Pixel, like the software experience, it's very simple, it's very clean, it just flows like it's a good experience for the user. Now, using a Samsung, on the other hand, not going to be as clean. So it's not as simple. There's a lot more customization. Sometimes it comes across as being rather clunky and things don't really flow. But with that customization edge, you can kind of tailor things to the way that you want, but it doesn't have the flow of the Pixel software by far. Honestly, from using both of them, I like both software experiences for, each of their own strengths. I would say if I had to pick one, I really like the Samsung customization because I feel like I can make it more of my own versus the Pixel, similar to like an iPhone, is just kind of like I feel like I'm just living within Google's box. Like they own the apartment and I'm just putting furniture in versus with the Samsung, it's like it's my house and I can knock down a wall if I want to or do whatever I want. But to double back on that, as if things couldn't already be more complicated, using some Google made apps on the Pixel provides a better experience than using those same Google made apps on the Samsung. And what I mean by that is using Google Messages on the Pixel, I can actually go in and set my notification sound just for the messaging app versus on the Samsung, when I click on the notification sounds, it takes me to just the main notification area. So all of my notifications have that same sound. And me being somebody who loves to customize, I want my text messages to have a certain sound and I want my emails to have a certain sound. Just so if by whatever off chance I just happen to have my ringer on to where I can actually hear notifications, then I know immediately what this notification is without having to go over there and pick up my phone and look at it. That's just how I am. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like that's one of the few areas where Google offers more customization with their Pixel than Samsung does with the Z Fold 7. For the people who primarily use Samsungs, then they know what the customization life is. Like specifically, I'm talking about good lock and how you can change just about everything from the way notifications are presented, the navigation bar, the lock screen. It's like you name it. Like you can create custom themes. It's just a whole new world. And I know that they said they were going to make Good Lock available, like on the Play Store, so you can customize other phones besides Samsung's. But of course, I went to download this for the Pixel and was told it wasn't compatible. As far as other little software things that I like more than a Pixel, I feel like it handles voice to text, which is like the primary way that I send out text messages now. I feel like it handles it much better than the Samsung because the Samsung, like the punctuation sometimes is a little crazy. Sometimes it doesn't get my words right. Sometimes it's just a headache. Also, with the Z Fold 7, if you swipe down from one corner, you get the control center. If you swipe down from the other, you get the notification center. And I know that there used to be a point in the past where you could combine them, and I'm sure you still can combine them. I just don't have it that way and see everything together. But what Google did with the Pixel is when you swipe down on one side of the screen, you got the control center. And on the other, at the same time, they have the notification center. And I never thought about that, like, period. And now that I've seen it and now that I'm using it, I absolutely love it. I think that is just, I don't know why more companies don't do that. And I feel like this is something that Samsung needs to put into One UI 8.5 or One UI 9, but it's pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. One thing that I did notice, and this is specifically for like going on social media or watching videos, is since the Samsung is thinner and taller, the aspect ratio seems to be more favorable for scrolling through Instagram or whatever your social media app is of choice or watching YouTube videos versus the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, since it's kind of got that wider, almost square vibe. Scrolling through Instagram, like the black bars on the side they're thicker. And I feel like even if you were to be able to like stretch it out to minimize the black bars, then just seeing one post on your screen as you're scrolling down, I don't feel like you would get the top and the bottom. I feel like it would just like chop off the ends. Versus on the Samsung, I think it probably fits perfectly or close to at least each post when you're scrolling down. So that's something that I noticed. And then with YouTube, I feel like the black bars are a little bit bigger, just a little bit on the Pixel. So, and I'm already not a big fan of the black bars on the foldables, but your viewing area, if you just remove the black bars from your memory or from your brain, like the video is still bigger than what you would see on your traditional slab phone. So it still works. It's still good. It's just you got black bars. So yeah. kind of makes me wonder what's the viewing situation going to be like when Samsung comes out with that G Fold, which everybody's calling a trifold, but it only has two hinges, so it should be a bifold. It's just kind of like we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's call a trifold an actual trifold when it folds three times, not because it has three. Like, you see what I'm saying? I marketing, naming, I don't get it sometimes. Next, so a lot of times I leave my phones on charging pads that are little stands and whatnot. So when I'm doing my work on my computer, I can just kind of glance over and see what's going on. And so Samsung has a legitimate always on display. And I mean, I guess Google does too. It's just a black screen with a clock on it. And when you actually plug it up to a charger, then you can set the screensaver to go off and it'll kind of go through like a specific folder or gallery that you want it to do. And that's cool and all. But like, I like seeing the always on display. Like, even if it's not charging, like if my phone is just sitting on the couch beside me and I look over, I don't want to just see a black screen with a clock on it. Like, I want to see whatever picture that I want to see. Like, it's my phone. I'm customizing it. This is what I want from my user experience. So that part is a little annoying, but I get it. It's all to save battery. I'm not going to touch on AI. They both have Gemini. What the Pixel has Magic Q, which still doesn't really do a lot in terms of just changing my overall experience on a daily basis with the Pixel. So, I mean, it's cool, but AI is AI at this point, and both of them have Gemini, and all of the main features that I use on one, I have on the other. So I think that's kind of, we're going to call that a draw. Then comes the multitasking. And I know this is an area that Google received plenty of feedback from with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. And I was really hoping that this year they were either going to like draw even or like step out on their own and do something wild that we haven't seen and just stand a head and shoulders above the competition. But I don't feel like anything changed. Like, I don't. With the Samsung, I can have three windows open at the same time with a pop-up window over top. And I know that most people are never going to use that many windows at once. But for me, like, I'll use the three windows for each one of my fantasy football leagues and a little pop-up window for the football game. Or, you know, I'll pull up Uber and Lyft at the same time and maybe Waymo as well for the three apps, or, Google Maps in there. Like, there's a few different scenarios where I have, three apps saved together and I can just go in, I can click them, everything pops up, and immediately, like, I'm good to go. I can check everything that I need to. Like, obviously, I'm not using three apps for a prolonged period of time unless it is like a fantasy football thing and I'm at a bar and I just want to like have the stuff up there because it's a close game and I just need to know what's happening. But on the Pixel, just using two, I mean, I can use a regular Pixel 10 Pro XL and use two. It's, I mean, it's cool because it's wider, so it actually feels like you got two phones side by side, so that's cool. But I just feel like they could have and should have done more, especially if, your target audience, like foldable users, are used to being able to do more with other foldables. So why wouldn't you at least want to, match the experience that they're getting from across the street? Last but not least, let's talk about software updates. So obviously Google makes Android and Pixel, so when software updates come out, they get them first. Samsung, on the other hand, they get the update from Google, then they have to reskin it in their own image. And need I remind you that when they got ready to release One UI.8, they were almost a year behind schedule. So if you're someone who really likes having the latest and greatest software updates like immediately, this is something you should definitely pay attention to, because you'll get it on the Pixel. You'll get it a lot quicker on the Pixel. But when Samsung comes out with their versions, sometimes you might get a feature or two that's not available on the Pixel, such as the Now bar. Okay, so let's talk about the cameras on these phones. So, consumers have been giving Samsung a hard time for years now on the quality of the cameras on the back of the Z Folds. So, for this year, they gave us a 200 megapixel camera, which immediately made a lot of people happy. Google, on the other end, has a 48 megapixel camera on the back to go with, the other cameras. And same thing for Samsung. It's not like it's just like 200 across the board or 48 across the board. I'll be honest. I really came into this thinking that I was going to do a picture comparison and I was going to be blown away by how much better the Samsung camera looks compared to the Pixels. But to be honest, I think I prefer the Pixels pictures like across the board. And that's a bit of a tongue twister, Pixel pictures. But seriously, like I really like them. I felt like the night shots were better. I felt like the day shots were better. The zoomed out shots were better, at least in my opinion. Now they do come close and they both are good in their own way, but just as a whole, the overall picture, I think I prefer Google's one, especially with like the colors. I felt like they felt a little bit more accurate, but yeah, I was kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't be, right? Like, if there's one smartphone company that's going to, at least on the Android side, that you can count on to nail a picture, it's usually, the Pixel. Now, Samsung is no slouch by any means. They're right there in the running most of the time. Outside of that, when it comes to features in general for Samsung's camera mode, I feel like it just has Google outclassed everything from pro photo to pro video. It can shoot in 8K. It has dual record. It just gives you options on options on options. There's even like a food camera, which I never use, but just knowing that it's there is like, okay, like I appreciate this. It's no secret that this new Pixel is considerably thicker than Samsung Z Fold. And I think they did it for all of the right reasons. This year they added Pixel Snap, and I think that makes them the first major company to put magnets in the back of a foldable, at least with a US release. I get some people might not care about this one bit, but if you have or had an iPhone at some point or have MagSafe accessories around, such as like chargers or a wallet or even, a car mount, like this could be a big deal for some people. And for me, it's definitely one of those creature comforts that while I didn't need, because most companies now sell cases that are MagSafe compatible for your phone, it's something that's still really cool to have. Although I will say, with Google's new added thickness to this phone, it does kind of tempt me to want to use it without a case for these MagSafe accessories. And I'm not going to do it, but the temptation is always it's right here. It's just sitting on the shoulder, like just use it without the case. And I'm not going to do it. But for the more important reason as to why this phone is thicker, the battery got bigger. It went from 4,600 and some odd milliamp hours to over 5,000. And when I compared these phones, I was kind of shocked. I took both these phones out on the weekend. I was shooting plenty of video, watching plenty of video, taking pictures on the internet. I was just really trying to give it a stress test that I would typically do. And I do consider myself a power user, so most of the time at the end of the day, if I haven't been charging the phone, then usually it's close. It's on life support. But when I tell you the Samsung went into the red so much quicker than the Pixel, like I was blown away. I think at the end of the day, the Samsung might have been at 13%, and the Pixel was cruising at like 38% with not a care in the world. Like that part, I just I wasn't ready for. And it did it over and over, like day after day after day. And I would just be, I would check in midday and just look at the batteries, and I'm just like, wow, like, am I using the Samsung too much right now, or is this just how the Pixel is? And it's just how the Pixel is. There's no way to explain it other than just bigger battery beats smaller battery. I wish I had a more eloquent way of putting that, but the Google Pixel battery just lasts so much longer than the Samsung's, and obviously it's a size issue. I'm gonna leave that one alone. But the Samsung, I feel like with the battery technology, they could do more with that battery. I think for the Z Fold, this might just be one of those times where it's time to give up the ghost and let the physical SIM go, just so we can get a little bit bigger of a battery, because that Pixel, it's a tank. Like not only in thickness, but just being able to make it through the day. It's kind of wild. I'm really happy about that, but that's not it. Like they gave us faster charging as well. Now it's only from 25 watts to 30 watts, so I didn't notice a difference. And as with all the other smartphone companies right now, you get 50% charge, 30 minutes. Well, minus the iPhone, which is 50 and 20, which is really sick. But like it's still a step in the right direction. Yes, I would love to see 50-watt charging or 80-watt charging, but I'm happy with this. This is a win. I know with Samsung with their like Ultra series phones, they got 45 watts. So I would love to see the Z Fold take that leap too, as well as like a bigger battery. But I mean, they made it thinner, they gave it a bigger camera. It still has all the customization. I'm happy. Thank you, Samsung, for that. And with Google's changes that they've made to the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, I'm happy with that too. So I think that this is a really strong year for foldables. I feel like the platform is definitely maturing. Side note, while I was putting these phones through the stress test over the weekend, I did notice that the Samsung, it was getting really hot. Now the Pixel was warm too, like I do expect that. I feel like that's normal, but the Samsung was like noticeably hot. So take with that what you want, but just an observation. The last thing that I want to talk about for these two juggernauts is the hinge. So for the Samsung, an IP48 rating, but for the Pixel, a mind-blowing IP68. I've taken the Samsung Z Fold 7 to the beach. I've dunked it in water, not in the ocean, in a pool, and everything was fine. It's gotten sand in the hinge a little bit, and I haven't had really any issues. It does have insurance. It does create small freakouts that I call hinge anxiety, but the phone is it's still pushing on. We're still good. Now, when it comes to the Pixel, I don't know how they achieved an IP68 rating, and I don't willfully take the phone and dip it in sand. It's just if it happens to get in there, then I deal with it as it comes. But there's some sort of relief that comes there just knowing that it's like IP68, like it should be okay. It should be able to keep the dust and dirt and sand out. But I mean, obviously it's a moving part, and I'm not going to test that because I know even the smallest things can still potentially get in. So I'm not going to mess with that. But it still makes me feel a little bit more safe or relief, if you will. So huge plus there. And I would love to see every foldable that comes out in the future to be IP68. Like, I think that would be amazing. So by now, I'm sure you're starting to get the picture that I've been painting here. So if you like the customization side, you're probably looking at the Samsung. But if you like a clean, smooth user experience with very quick updates, you're probably looking at the Pixel. As for me, I think that I resonate a little bit more with the customization side. I just like making things my own. But the battery life of that Pixel and having Pixel Snap and just the overall Pixel experience still is calling to me. So I might be holding the Z Fold 7, but I still look back every once in a while to see that Pixel. So with that being said, I don't think that if you picked one or the other, you're a loser here. I think that you win no matter what, because I feel like this year, both companies brought their A game and we have two amazing devices. So regardless of which one you pick, you're going to be very happy with it. But with that being said, if you already own one of these devices or you're still debating, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, take care.